I'm sitting there watching that football game, us together, and we're trying to have a conversation about the Lions defense and where it might be deficient, and just touchdown, first down, touchdown. They keep matriculating down the field. They keep splashing big plays. Do your eyes go to the offense or defense first here on Detroit, Mac?
Well, offensively, they were outstanding. When you look at only having 13 points in the first half and then an explosion of points in the second half led by Jared Goff, he was unbelievable. I mean, this is in the red zone. So when you look at what they needed to do, and also too knowing when you're playing with so many injuries on the defensive side, it puts more pressure on your offense. And I was a bit concerned about seeing the offense press, understanding and knowing they had some issues defensively because of injuries. Jared Goff was able to handle that said pressure. Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, J-Mo Williams, everyone on the offense did a phenomenal job in getting things going. And then the defense came to the party. When you look at Purdy, he's one of the best ball-hawking safeties in the National Football League. And he's one of the few guys on that defense who was a day-one starter, who's healthy enough to be on the football field right now, and he lived up to the billing.
That's right, B-Mac. No Aiden Hutchinson, no Alex Anzalone, no John Kaminsky. And I know Joe is worried about the defense with the Lions as we sit here. But the offense said, don't worry, I got you. And I'm actually really impressed with this win for a couple of reasons. You guys talked about the offense, but they traveled out west. They played a pretty tough game, and a game that really didn't matter. They could have decided, Dan Campbell, to sit the starters and just come out Week 18 and go toe-to-toe with the Minnesota Vikings in a game that will decide the division, whether they had won or lost tonight in San Francisco. But instead, we saw Aaron Glenn and that defense take a punch after punch in the first half. B-Mac, you know this. When you rest your starters before the season's over, it's hard to get back in the form that you were in when you were having success. So I give the Lions a ton of credit. It was a very ugly win on one side of the football, but you pointed out Kirby Joseph got hot when they needed him to. And here they are. They're going into Week 18 with a chance to win the division.
And they are facing a Vikings team. We'll get into that matchup in a bit here on HQ that does possess a whole bunch offensively, because when you look at this one, this is the first game since 1937 with 10-plus touchdowns combined and no punts. They couldn't get off the field if not for those interceptions, Mac. To be turnover dependent this time of year, if you're causing the turnovers, that's a great thing. But if you're not taking the ball away, do you have reservations and worries about this Lions team in playoff football?
Yes, I do, because of the turnovers that led to extra possessions for their offense, and they cashed in. But outside of that, you know, there were some issues for their defense in getting necessary stops. When you look at the beast of an offense they're going to see next week, Sam Darnold has been playing better football than Brock Purdy. The entire offense in the Minnesota Vikings, they've been playing better than the San Francisco.
Up when you're looking at a Vikings team, or maybe down the road looking at an Eagles team, if this is the personnel.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, the big task is the Minnesota Vikings. The one luxury the Detroit Lions have at their disposal can be the same luxury for the Minnesota Vikings. Ryan, Joe, they're playing against a divisional team. So both sides know each other extremely well. This won't be a situation where you're not prepared. You see them twice a year. You know what they're going to do. You know their personnel. And that could be a luxury for the Detroit Lions, especially on the defensive side where they're dealing with so many injuries. But also, too, at this point in the season, it's safe to say they're used to the injuries. They're used to the guys that have filled in for some of the day one starters that are no longer there. So when it comes to this game next week, it's about which team is going to play tougher for longer. Which team is going to execute better. Which team is going to play clean football? Because in terms of tricking you and just out-scheming you, you don't usually see those things happen in divisional games, especially in the final week of the season.
Lions have 6 starters on IR. That's troubling, no doubt about it. But the other luxury that you talked about there, B-Mac and Joe, even if they lose, and this goes for the Vikings as well, you'll be the 5th seed, and you're going to either travel and play the Buccaneers or the Falcons. And while Baker Mayfield's red hot, we don't know who this Falcons team is. So there are worse fates than having to worry about the Philadelphia Eagles just yet, whether you win or lose this game. And maybe that's an opportunity to get healthy as well. Obviously, Dan Campbell and the Lions have every intention of winning that football game, and they're going to let Jared Goff do the things that he does so well. But even if you lose, the consolation prize, even if they won't say it out loud, is that there are worse fates than facing the winner of the NFC South in round 1.
I know this will not be a normal 5 seed in whoever loses that game, but a 5 seed has only made it to Super Bowl Sunday 3 times in NFL history. Super Bowl Sunday is often played between 1 seeds.
And I'll say this, you know, in terms of if Detroit loses to the Minnesota Vikings next week, it would feel like a disappointment if they are sitting in the 5th spot. And here's why. They've held on to the #1 spot in the NFC for 10 weeks. They've held on to the #1 spot in the NFC North for 10 weeks. That's more than half of the football season. And to allow that to squander through your fingers in the final 2 weeks of the season and end up being in the 5th spot, it will feel like a letdown because of how dominant you've been and how much you held on, how long you held on to the top spots in the entire NFC and the division in terms of the NFC North.
It's going to be interesting to see that game and watch it play out and all the trickle down from it. But back to the here and now, the San Francisco 49ers, they suffer a loss. This is a season to forget, but still plenty memorable within this game for Brock Purdy, who shows you the high highs and then in the biggest moments again, shows you the lows. Purdy, 9 touchdowns to 15 interceptions in his career when tied or trailing in the second half. Great with a lead, but when chasing, he continues to beg the question of, is this the guy? And I know your answer, Mac, and this is not the game singularly that's going to define this one way or another, but is this the biggest problem that San Francisco has on their hands right now? A quarterback that hasn't showed you yet that he can do this in this moment and is due for a contract.
As an organization, I am the quarterback moving forward. No question, he had a few bad plays tonight. But think about the great plays, the great ball placement that he was able to, you know, get to his wide receivers, his pass catchers. Look at what he's done overall in his career. He has outkicked his coverage. He has exceeded the expectations. He's done nothing but win ball games outside of this bad year, not just for him, but for the entire organization. But when you look at what Brock Purdy has done since becoming Mr. Irrelevant, earning a job. Remember, it wasn't like this was given to him. He earned his stripes there. And because of where he currently sits, getting close to that negotiating timeline in his contract, whatever his value is or the market says his price is, it is. It is what it is. Because if you cannot tell me option B is better than option A, you better keep option A around.
Right, and that's the same conversation, B-Mac, we have when fans want to fire coaches. Well, who's the backup plan? And by the way, those 2 interceptions, the first one was an overthrow, and the second one, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, just getting fooled, and a great job by Kirby Joseph. But the overall point is the one that B-Mac's making. In a lot of cases, Brock Purdy has saved Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch from themselves. They're the ones that traded up to number 3 to take Trey Lance. And look, we don't talk a lot about Trey Lance because of Brock Purdy. And if you don't want to pay him, as B-Mac notes, well, good luck to you, because someone's going to pay Brock Purdy. And I would just say this to finish up. If you want to get an idea maybe in the crystal ball of what Brock Purdy's future looks like, look across the sidelines at what Jared Goff did. He struggled with the Rams. Yes, they got to the Super Bowl, so did Brock Purdy. And then he caught fire when he got to the right place for him. I think Brock Purdy's in the right place, but with all the injuries, it's hard to ding him for how this season's gone. In fact, I give him credit for getting as far as he did and playing as well as he did under such circumstances.
You get a Monty, you get a Gibbs, you get an Amon-Ra, you get a J-Mo, and you get a good chance. That's what this Lions team has moving forward. All 4 of those players over 1,000 yards this season, the first team in NFL history to do that with 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers. Going to be a tough offense to stop, and that is the task now for those Minnesota Vikings. We'll dig into that matchup on the other side of a quick break.